Welcome. So now let's see the questions regarding the PBS company. Now let's see the task number 1. Now, if we click on the task number 1, total 38 marks. Here, splitting into the part A as well as the part B. Now, my advice to you is that firstly, we'll need to look at what's being asked so we can understand the knowledge framework that we can refer to later on. Now, part A, prepare briefing note, assess the impact of joint venture. So which means that in our study note that we can see that strategic alliances here related to joint venture and even franchise to be asked. And most likely, you will need to answer the pros and cons of each. So, on the PVS brand and the extent to which our company service features will be delivered, okay, which means the impact on our business, in other words. And then to recommend whether a franchise agreement will be better than a joint venture. Now, the conclusion is not important. You can say yes or no. Absolutely fine, you can get full marks, but we need to explain why. At the same time, for the franchise agreement, you also need to explain the pros and cons of it. Now, we are given 14 marks here. So the best way to plan this question from my perspective is that firstly, we can see that 14 marks, splitting that into the JV and the franchise as a starting point. And then I will allocate 7 and 7 marks. Oops. I've also got the final conclusion of which one is better. My gut tells me that it's likely to be 1 to 2 marks, so allocate 2 marks here because according to the marking scheme that most likely in the SBL exam is 2 marks per point. So if that's the case, then perhaps 16 marks, no. So perhaps 5 marks there. So this is not important. The most important thing is how many points or how many small paragraphs that you need to write. Well, from my perspective, it's like 3 paragraphs I like to write, 3 paragraphs I like to write, and then 1 paragraph I like to write. Splitting that into 3 headings, the JV, franchise, and conclusion. So which means the total I aim at 7 paragraphs, okay, in this question. Now, looking back, the professional marks demonstrating evaluation skills in relation to a joint venture. And of course, you need to be very careful about the pros and cons, and that's it. You don't really have to say to the examining team that this shows my professional skill, because it's quite subjective. If you can achieve high in a technical, and you will achieve high in a professional. Now, we are told about the CEO asked the board to suggest ways to grow the business, and we are told that the business development director proposing a joint venture between our company and the B4P, which means the best for pet, would involve that our company establishing vet clinics in a number of B4Pet superstores. Now, my starting point would certainly be the joint venture agreement here can be in many forms. So, for example, in our knowledge course, you can see that joint venture can simply be agreement, or it can simply be that we are doing something together, or it can simply be that we set up a new entity. But here, it seems to me that we are doing something together, basing on the agreement, which means that we set up our businesses or expand our businesses directly in the B4P's superstores, and that's it. So the first thing is, I would like to perform the brainstorming exercise before we move any further, because if you don't understand this question, there's no point that you can get marks. So this means that these are pet service business, PVS, and now I'm going to be working with the B for pet, and then I'm going to be setting up a number of stores within it. So what will be the pros and cons to our business? Well, obviously, if you can refer it back to our knowledge point, and you can use these headings. So for example, increasing income, sharing the resources and risks, perhaps culture clashes because we may lose control over quality. So I would say that for the JV, I would like to plan these three things. So the pros, I will increase the sales revenue. We can share things, but the cons will be the cultural issues. Alternatively, lose quality. I will say that in my course, I will also say to my students that when you're talking about franchise, you can even use the same headings there. I mean, using a franchise, you can increase sales because you can receive the franchise fee from the franchisee, for example. Later on, we can see that. Okay, I'll share the risk because we don't need to run our stores. It's up to the franchisees to run their stores, and we can share a proportion of their revenue each and every year. However, we may lose quality because the franchisee may not follow the quality standard. So, if that's the case, then automatically it will give me 6 points by using these three stuff, okay, in both joint venture and franchise agreement. Now, the next thing is you will need to bring the exhibit information into your answer. That's more important. I will tell you exactly how to do that later on. Now, so therefore, the CEO wants to understand more about the joint venture and the impact on the brand. Is particularly interested in the extent to which service features that have provided our business competitive advantage. Okay? So, for example, in terms of location, innovation, and quality of services. All right. So this means that by doing this, that we can share the resources, we can reduce our costs and even the upfront investment in these sort of things. He also asked whether a franchise agreement might better protect the brand and reduce financial risk. Okay, so this is why that we've got the franchise agreement there. So the starting point is that we're going to be copying the requirements using Control-C button, and then we're going to open up the word processor on the left and telling the examining team that this is related to the part A of our answer. You don't really have to say that this is task 1 because it's under the task 1 section here. And then you simply paste it there. Okay. Now paste it. If it is briefing note, what you need to do is to copy that and then paste that, which means Control-V, press Enter, and then press Center. Okay, make it center. Assessing the impact of the joint venture. Okay, so you just copy that, joint venture, and paste that there. So we will need to tell ourselves that regarding the joint venture, when we're discussing about it, we'll need to also talk about mentioning about the brand and mentioning about the service features. Because, which means Control-C and Control-V. Because we can see on the right-hand side that the PVS competitive advantage will be this. So therefore, we may need to bring these sort of things in our answer later on. And then the franchise agreement, okay, just copy that and then paste that in. And 14 marks there. Well, as I said before, that when we plan the answers, the pros and cons, which means the sales, share of resources, and culture stuff. Okay, so which means that we can have sales revenue will increase, and the share resources and risks. And then the downside will be the cultural clashes or quality issues. Depending on, later on we'll read up, okay? So which one is better, okay? So we can choose which points to make, to explain. And press Enter for the franchise, Control-V again. So here we will need to format that, press Enter, and press Enter. And finally, that we've got the conclusion, which is better. Now, the next thing I want you to do is that to make sure that you format your answer. So for example, you can click on B for boat, and then underline this, and then the first J, that'll certainly be the J in capital, and sales, underline this, because that was standing for the subheading, using a different format. Franchise, the F should be in capital format. Now clicking on B and U, underline, and then sales, clicking on underline, and then share, resources, and risks. Underlying, cultural classes of quality. Finally, conclusion. Okay, that's it. Now, I want you to know is this, okay, also for briefing note. There are 14 marks because we've planned the number of points already. So you can simply, for each point, we can write one paragraph there. So you simply delete all this information, and then we can start, possibly to read through the part B-ish one, okay, later on, when we see that. Now, what I want you to do, move it to the right-hand side. We can close it. Firstly, that we're seeing the information on the right-hand side that the PBS company provides pet vet services, okay? We've gone through the Preseen before. The following exhibit, we've got board meeting transcript, and we'll need to see that because the task 1, we're told about the CEO, the BD, were discussing about something, possibly within the board meeting transcript. So we click on the exhibit on the left-hand side, and that's it, all we can do. Now, all sort of dialogue there. So clicking on the task again, okay, clicking on the word processor again, move it on the left-hand side. So what we need to do next is that we need to read through the dialogue and to see how can we put a point in, and that's all we can do. Now, firstly, you can zoom out if you find it uncomfortable. You can zoom in. Okay, now, for example, that the CEO has said that market share has been falling, so we would like to grow the business. Now, my suggestion is for a joint venture with the Best for Pet or B4P to establish our clinics in some of their stores. Okay, so what I would do is as a starting point, the joint venture, here, I will give a brief definition of it. Okay, so the joint venture, short for JV, if you like, the JV means the PVS sets up a number of clinics in the B4P stores under the agreement, so both parties can share the return out of it or from it, if you like. Now, you don't really have to quote the exact definition from the academic study notes, but using your own words and tailoring to the case, that's important. Now, it would be the first collaboration of this kind in our industry, okay, so this means that we've got no experience of that. The B4P is the largest of the islands, which means the countries, 2 pet superstores with stores outside town centres in the north and east of Ireland. Now, when you're reading each part, so you can simply tell yourself, how can we relate our answer back? Now, from my perspective, I can relate to my answer such as this. Control C there, and then Control V there, which means that I like to paste it to the left-hand side when we talk about sales, for example. but I will not directly copy and paste that, but rather I would like to comment on it. Now, I would say that the JV can help increase our revenue. Okay, which means the PBS company's revenue. I need to say that because we are working with B4P, which is the largest of the Ireland's 2 pet superstores. Okay, just paste that in. This means that, okay, so which means to explain one step further, we can save lots of marketing expenses and more customer will know our brand. Because we're working with a large company, so therefore we don't need to be worried about the traffic issues. Now, this is it, and this is how we do it. But at the same time, that they've got stores outside town centres in the north and east of Ireland. Now, in our Preseen, if you go back to the Preseen, you can simply click on Ctrl F and to see whether or not we've got stores, okay, in those regions. Now, in our Preseen that we mentioned about the best for pet already, okay, and clicking on enter, and we can see that whether or not we've got outside town centres. Now you can search for town centres. Now over 85% of our PVS clinics are in town centres. So this means that quite limited outside town centres. Okay, so you can say in your answer that, clicking back to word processor, PVS only has 85% clinics inside town centres. This means by working with B4P, we can increase our brand awareness or expose our brand in the north and east of Ireland to better increase our revenue from there. And then after we've done this, just delete the information that we have copied from the exhibit, and that's it. So leave a line to each point that you wrote, absolutely fine there. Now automatically, from my perspective, that you don't really have to say these two. All we could do is to say this, and you will get 2 marks here. The reason is you're not getting 1 mark because you've made your point. This will increase our revenue because that we are working with that, and that's well explained. Because you've got words because. At the same time, you explain 1 step further. This means that we can save lots of marketing expenses and get the traffic from that already. So these 2 points will automatically give you 2 marks, and that's it. So this point just duplicates that just for tutorial purposes, because all you need to do is to plan the answer and then write 1 paragraph under each heading. That's it, and move on. Now, alternatively, I would say that because B4P is the largest of the Ireland's 2 pet superstores, and so they've got town centres, in the north and east of Ireland. Now, what that means is we can directly copy that again when we are talking about the franchise agreement. Now, we paste that in, and then we can talk about sales revenue. But before that, let's give a brief definition of a franchise agreement. This means, as a franchisor, PVS can get franchise fee from a B4P business upfront and share the subsequent or later, if you don't like the word subsequent, returns from a B4P business, where B4P needs to follow the prescribed standard. Now, prescribed standard in the franchise agreement that we set before. Okay. Now, how to illustrate it? I mean sales. Now, it seems that the JV, because we're working with a B4P, which means to set up the number of B4P stores. But here, increasing our revenue, this is because the B4P is the largest of the Ireland 2-pet superstores. So this means that PBS can share subsequent revenue from the B4P each year, given B4P is the largest competitor. Okay, Control X just to paste it in. We could estimate, or we could expect, large revenue stream is available to PBS. Under the franchise agreement, because they have, because what do I mean by largest? Because they have lots of customers already. Okay, that's how we do it. Now, just twist the information and slot that into the answer using a common sense. That's important in this exam. Moving on. Although it's low-cost strategy means that it only provides a basic level of customer service, growth in customer numbers exceeding the growth in the pet ownership. Okay, now it seems to me that B4P, why the number of customers has been so huge? Well, because it's using a low-cost strategy. I would say that why not just to supplement this into the sales? Lots of customers, comma, given they have been using the low-cost strategy, i.e. low costs, low price, and sales volume is huge. Okay, so we can expect that, no worries. At the same time, low costs, but it seems to me that in our Preseen, you can click on that. When you search for PVS business, that most of the growth has been organic and so on and so forth. But if you see in our mission and so on, to be the vet organization of choice, so which means the quality should be good. Okay. So our values, for example, the first class innovation service. Okay. So it seems to me that that contradicts with what we can see in the B4P. It seems to be the cultural clashes. Now, just copy that in, first class innovation service there, and then paste it to the words processor. I would say that culture clashes. Okay, paste that in. But here, paste that in. Okay, now when we're explaining the cultural clashes regarding a joint venture that we are doing business all together, we can say that PBS culture is different from the B4P because PVS values, let's take one value for example, values the first class innovative service. However, the low cost strategy, which means that the B4P uses the low cost strategy to provide basic level of customer service only. Now, if you simply say this, absolutely fine, I would give you 1 mark, but I won't give you 2 marks because you didn't explain the implication. I mean, so what? You provide different services levels, so what? I would say that, now, this means that B4P's service quality may not be high, so it may affect PVS brand, okay, if we work together. That's it. Okay, that's how we explain things there. Now, B4P customers are attracted to the superstores by low prices. Okay, extensive car parking available and the good public transport links, allowing them to avoid rising traffic congestion in town centres. Okay, now it seems to me that we can share the resources that we can comment on that. Just copy that in and paste that there. So what we can say is this. Now, PBS does not need to invest heavily in the facilities such as car parking. Okay, just don't copy and paste that, but say that using your own words. Car parking, good public transport links. Okay, if it works with B4P, this is because B4P has these resources already. It's like B4P sharing these resources with PVS, okay, under joint venture agreement. Okay, that's it. Now, referring back to the point that we will need to answer about location, that we've seen that the quality of service, yes, we may sacrifice that if we work with the B4P and even the innovation. Now, because that we've talked about the quality there, the culture stuff, okay, what I would do at the same time, I would like to paste that in, copy and paste that in to a franchise here, okay, where we talk about quality. But we'll need to explain things in a completely different way because under a joint venture, the PBS company will work with the B4P business. Okay, so under a joint venture, I will still need to operate my own business. But under a franchise, will simply be that it's up to a B4P to run the PBS function or PBS clinics in the PBS way. So it's more of an independent ways to work. So this is why quality may be compromised. So what I would do is that I would like to delete cultural clashes and focus on quality. Now, this means that under the franchise agreement, that the prescribed standard in franchise agreement may not be followed by B4P business. The reason why this would be a case is because the franchise way is more of an independent way that B4P will run the clinics under the PVS way. Now, I will also need to explain one step further of the implication for that. I would say that because B4P uses a low-cost strategy. Now, copy that, paste that, i.e. low price charged to boost revenue. But if B4P does not invest sufficiently in providing the service, so this means that you are not fulfilling the requirements in the franchise agreement. So at the same time, this will certainly upset customers in this industry and hurt PBS brand. So delete that, okay? You can say that this is different, but it's more of an independent way that you've said to the examining team that we know that what you're talking about. Right, okay. Now how about the shared resources and risks? I mean, if you read through the rest of those, that's not very relevant to the answer because we've answered most of them already. Now, shared resources, let's have a look. An increasing number of customers are looking for pet healthcare advice, which B4P staff do not have the vet training to provide. Okay, so this seems to me that that would be an incentive for the B4P to enter the franchise agreement with us. Okay, so we'll directly copy that in, Control C and Control V. So we'll say that there's an incentive for B4P to enter into the franchise agreement because, okay, seeing that increasing number of customers looking for pet healthcare advice where the staff did not have a vet training to provide. So because the pet healthcare advice is provided by specialized staff. And this requires lots of training and it will be risky for B4P staff or B4P to provide this without appropriate training and even system. Therefore, by directly using the PVS way, which means under a franchise agreement, for this, the B4P could reduce lots of costs, which means the upfront costs, and to invest in the system to train its staff in providing the healthcare advice. So B4P could reduce lots of costs in establishing such a system by simply using the franchise way. Okay, so it's like share resources and risks. Okay, that's it. So do you really need to look at other stuff? Well, B4P is very result-oriented organization. Okay, so result-oriented, I like that word. So therefore, perhaps that's in the marketing scheme. We're not particularly sure at the moment. We just copied up. Where do you think that should be fit into? Well, from my perspective, it's like culture. So PBS culture is very different from B4P. We can open a bracket, Control V, it's result-oriented. Okay, focus on external success rather than internal satisfaction. Okay, not focusing on this. Okay, Control C. Where do you think that should fit into? I would say that it's like culture. It's like customer will not like it. I mean, why not put that under the franchise way? I mean, the quality section there. Low cost strategy, low price, charge to boost revenue. Not invest sufficiently providing a service, open a bracket, because it focus on external success rather than internal satisfaction. This will upset customers and so on. Okay, that's it. Now, I have an alternative suggestion. I mean, that's related to another question, which means the later one. I will see that later on. But let's make a conclusion. Now, what do you think? Do you prefer joint venture or franchise? I mean, it's entirely up to you. Okay. So I would say that why not joint venture? If you select joint venture because you value that we can't use such an independent ways to run the business. We value quality. Now, the joint venture should be considered because PVS needs to control quality tightly to ensure its premium brand position is maintained. Alternatively, you can say that yes, we value, for example, the franchise. So how can we say that? This is an alternative way. You don't really have to put these two, okay, into the answer. The franchise way should be considered because PVS can enjoy additional franchise revenue to protect itself from the falling market share. Now, falling market share, that's implied by the CEO at the very first start. And that's how you relate back to the case. Now, finally, briefing note that we can say briefly about what it's all about. Now, the briefing note using the words evaluate, because that's in the professional marks, the JV and franchise ways, and with a recommendation in the bottom. Okay, that's it. Briefing note, make it bold. Okay, check your formats. Right, so you answer everything, it's fine. And finally, you can say that if you have questions, please contact me. Full stop. I'll say. Now, that's how we answer a question like this. Task number 1, part A, 14 marks. Ignore the 4 marks. It's entirely up to the examining team to give you. Okay. Now, I'm going to be stopping the recording now, and in the next recording, I would like to answer the part B.
APC, accounting for your future.